What's up, Sky Squad? We are back in the building. Yes. Let me know in the chatterization where you guys are watching from. If you happen to be catching this broadcast live, listen, we got to go into this whole TAMAR Braxton, get your life. Okay. Talking about episode 6, the final word. Okay. This is the final word, the finale of this rather short, rather confusing season of TAMAR Braxton, Get Your Life. Okay. Now, if you guys happen to be watching in that chatterization, let me know, first of all, where you guys are watching from. Also, let me know what your thoughts are about this episode on a scale of 1 to 10. Y'all know we got to do our rating. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate this episode? And I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys from the, right from the rip at the start of this video, I'm going to rate this episode a 7.5. And the reason why I'm going to rate it a 7.5 is mostly because I feel like we didn't really have any resolution at the end of the day. We didn't get a lot of the things that we were supposed to get in this series. And I feel like we are left with a lot more questions than we are answers. But we did get an idea of exactly how some things played out and why they played out the way that they did on the show, which we're going to talk about as we sort of review this episode. I'm pulling up my notes right now, but I want to know what you guys thought about this. I see a lot of 5s. I see some 6s. I see some 8s. What else? I actually see a 4. Okay. I see a 4. 5. We got 5s. Listen, we got a lot to cover in this episode, and we're going to talk about it all. I see some of you guys saying that you're disappointed in Tamar, and listen, I don't blame you. Lady of Class gave it a 1, okay? I don't blame you. I feel like we got everything that we needed out of this show, and I just kind of feel like we were just left hanging to dry. But 2 things major that did happen in this episode, as you guys can see from the headline, is that we get Tamar walking out on production at the end during her final interview, and then we also, actually, she walked out on them kind of twice, and then we get Mona Scott Young checking David. I was so happy she did this, but before we all get into that, I want to go ahead and discuss, okay? Let's get into the episode. So first things first, we get a wrap-up sort of scene with David, Tamar, and I believe it was Michael Beck, okay? Goldie has quit the show, but the show is moving right on along, and Tamar seems just fine with it, okay? Michael says that everything went into a spiral after Goldie left. He says the goal was to film Tamar getting control of her life back. And I don't think we accomplished that goal in any way, shape, or form. Comment in the chat if you think that we got to the goal of this in any way, shape, or form, because I don't think we got there, okay? He wants to know from David and Tamar's perspective how filming went. So, of course, David, before Tamar even has an opportunity to even mention what he thinks, he's jumping in there immediately. He says it was invasive. He had a lot of issues with vents popping up and popping over. He feels like he can't go to the bathroom. And then Tamar, when she finally does speak up, she says that she doesn't trust the process because she always comes out looking like the villain for the past 8 years, with, I'm assuming, her time on WeTV in general, okay? I would have to say that that Tamar has to own a little bit of that behavior and how she looks like a villain. You know, when you appear on a reality television show, yes, there will be certain archetypes that we have on the show in order to make the show better. And there are usually people who are already willing and able to be the villain, because a lot of people, when they come onto reality television, are willing to do anything for a check, and they will throw any and everybody under the bus to do so. Now, I would say that that wasn't necessarily Tamar's villain role, but I do feel like she, you know, a lot of times through some of her actions, she came into conflict with her sisters a lot. And so ultimately, it made her look like the villain. So to me, I feel like, you know, that's a role that she can own, but it's also worthwhile to note that she was not an unlikable villain if she felt like she was a villain, because most people love Tamar. They love her regardless of whether or not she's causing controversy or not. You know, at the end of the day, that villain role worked for her because it led her to other TV gigs. It led her to getting her spinoff. And I feel like if she really embraced it versus running away from it, then she would do better on these types of shows. Also, too, I guess it's hard to be a villain when you are in the midst of your own family. I think that's another element that is added to this mix, because the family has issues. The family has issues that are deep-seated from way back when the dad was cheating on the mom, okay? The issues stem from way back when. And then that whole thing with Toni Braxton actually getting the solo deal and then them getting the group deal and having to cut Tracy out, all of that is still bubbling beneath the surface. And we'll talk about Tracy in just one second. Now, Tamar feels like she doesn't want people to miss the message of the show, and that there was no room for change in a person who had formerly, been looked at as the villain and who had gone through so much in their life. Okay. She says that the journey had been hard, but necessary. Now, in my mind, I feel like, okay, it seems like she's finally getting a grasp on the fact that when you are doing the work to improve yourself, the journey to get to the other side is never easy. If you have been, and this is for anybody that's ever been through something and come out on the other end of it, let me know if you go on to counseling, if you go on to therapy, in the chatterization. Is it not hard to go through the journey of understanding yourself, healing, and getting to the other side? It is very unpleasant, okay? It is not a pretty thing, because a lot of times, a lot of us do not want to look at the mirror and understand that we own a part in the place that we have gotten to in our lives. We were in the driver's seat that led us to the destination that we ultimately did not want to be in. And I feel like Tamar has to understand that she too had a part to play in this, and that it is not going to be an easy road to get back to the promised land. Okay. That is what I have to say about that. Now, so we also learned that they are heading to Trina's bachelorette party weekend, okay? She kind of shades the fact that this is going to be Trina's third marriage, okay? So it didn't seem like that big of a deal, right? Which I thought was kind of odd, but I guess it kind of lets us know where they are in that relationship. David is excited to spend time with her dad and her brother. He says in his confessional, "I've seen Tamar help her family members and then seen them turn around and not be there for her." Now, Tamar kind of seemed to echo some of that sentiment this past week when she sort of released that audio where she said that it was nice to, all of a sudden, it was nice to get these, so the support from her family, which led us to believe that she felt like she wasn't getting that support anytime before. And this is not the first time we've heard somebody in her, if it wasn't from her or from somebody in her circle, saying something to the effect that the family wasn't there for her when she needed them. Okay. So then the topic of conversation turns to Goldie, and this is where I was tripping. Okay. She says that she felt she was pulled in two different directions and that she didn't want to have to pick a side when there is no side to take. So then, do y'all know this mother trucker gonna say there is no side? It was just do what you gotta do. I'm like, player, please. You were forcing her to take a side at each and every turn. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like now you want to act like, oh, there was no side. There's no side. There's no side to take in this. And I'm like, bro, you was the main reason why you had to choose a side in the first place. And to be quite honest with you, now that I think about it, typically when most people go to therapy, it is only the therapist and themselves, unless they are in couples counseling, that is in there with them. And I feel like this was a total invasion of Tamar's privacy. The fact that this man wants to take control of the counseling sessions that she was in. I just don't get it. But anyway, I could talk about that until I'm blue in the face, but it ain't gonna change the fact that I felt like he was selfish. Moving right along. Tamar then blames Goldie for the issues. She says because Goldie wasn't able to articulate the answers to David's questions, she should have went home and thought about it and had her own separate conversation with David. For what? For what? Who would do that? Who would do that? If you hire me, I'm only working with you. I'm not hired to work with your spouse, your kids, your auntie, your uncle, your mama, your maid, your butler, your driver, your Uber driver, your best friend, your side chick, your side piece. I'm not hired to work with any of those people but you. So I don't need, if Goldie don't need to have no conversations with nobody but you. You are the one who needed to have a conversation with David and tell him to get out of your business and mind his own. Mind the business that pays him, which is that financial business or whatever he got going on. Meanwhile, she says not to bring it back to work. She to the work that she and Tamar were doing, because the issues that David has are not her issues. Yes, they are. He made them your issues. I ain't really get that. So David admits that he and his mother prayed Goldie away. Okay. They prayed Goldie away and it worked. And so now Tamar is laughing. And I'm thinking to myself, are you totally bypassing the fact that this man just sabotaged the counseling that the network, I'm sure, was paying for? Okay, we laughing about this? Really? Whew. Anyway, so Tamar attends the bachelorette party where she sees her sisters and that she has not seen in months. Now, we do not see this scene on this show, but I'm assuming that we're going to see it on Braxton Family Values. So we got to wait until that happens in order to get it. But when she gets back, she does discuss it. Okay, she discusses it with James Wright. I think that's his name, James Wright. And she meets him at the Mexican restaurant, and she says that the party was not together. Okay, there was some things going on with the bachelorette party that was not together, and he asked how she feels, and she says she's happy for Trina, but that's all she got. Okay, another little bit of shade there. She says the wedding is going to be a lot because all of the family members have been there. There's still a lot of hurt and pain with regards to them losing her niece. I think it was, if I remember correctly. And then comes to where the wedding in general. Trina allegedly told Tamar that Tamar will be sitting in the same seat that she is in the wedding as she will be in the reception. So they take this to mean that the wedding is going to be El Cheapo. Okay. I felt like that was shade too. Okay. I'm thinking to myself, Trina is getting the most shade in this episode. I mean, it was just so much for me. I was like, oh my God, what did Trina do? What did Trina do? What did Trina do? You know what I mean? We also learned that David gave her the key to his house on their second date. That's real fast for me, but hey, get it how you live it. I ain't want to judge that. However you get your romance is however you get your romance. But look at what it ended up now. So I don't know if that was the best idea. Okay, I wouldn't advise it. You know, keep that key until about 6-7 months, or maybe a year until you know the person. Because really and truly, honestly, you don't know a person that well until you've been with them for some years. That's what I think. Because people are, and then you might not even know them then, because people will continue to grow and change and grow and change and grow and change, and you got to allow them to do so. So you just got to kind of follow along the journey and grow and walk with them. You know what I mean? Anyway. So she says that someone told her one time that the bigger the ring, the bigger the problems, and she's referring to her marriage with Vince. I have heard the same thing, but I honestly think that you know when you got problems with your relationship, and you know when you are side skirting those problems. We all grown here, we all been in these situations, so we know how these things go. And a lot of people will bypass those problems because the money looking good. Okay. I'm not saying that's what she did, but what I'm saying is that's what happens a lot of times with these people who talk about the bigger the diamond, the bigger the problems. Okay. Typically, you know what those problems that you're getting into are when you get that diamond. Okay. Now, so then James asks about Goldie, and she responds that the time they spent together was the time they were supposed to spend together. Then that conversation immediately turns to Michael, because she turns around and she says to him, "Did you tell my friend to ask me this? Was this you forcing this conversation about Goldie? That now that she didn't quit, was it you? Because I don't trust you. I don't trust none of y'all." Okay. So she says that, and basically at that point in time, they got to go ahead and deal with the fact that Tamar does not trust this production at all. She don't trust nobody involved in production. And I feel like, okay, I get it. You have a right to not trust these people. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, you know, at a certain point in time, you got to start saying to yourself, Tamar, like, for real, I asked for this. I signed up for this. This was all me. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like she hasn't gotten to that point yet where she could do that. And I don't know why, because she's been in this industry long enough to understand that you responsible for, you make the decisions in your life. You run this thing. And that's going to come up again later at a different point in time. But for right now, I'm kind of like, Tamar, you knew what you signed up for when you did this show. You knew what you had going on. So I don't understand why she's acting so crazy, knowing that she got to talk about these things, especially given the fact that Goldie had done quit. It don't make any sense to me. It does not make any sense at all to me. Whew. Give 1 second, y'all. I done had to run downstairs and let the house cleaning people in. And now we back. Okay, and now we back. So getting back to what we were saying. Whew. Sorry, y'all. I had to pause for the calls. Pause for the calls. Things is going on inside the house, but we still gonna make it do what it do. Anyway, so at that point in time, Tamar is set to do her final interviews. She is set to do the final interview, and for whatever reason, Tamar decides to show up without hair and makeup. And I was like, okay. Well, first of all, what she does is, it's real weird to me. She cancels her hair and makeup. The crew is getting ready to go. And then she shows up with no makeup and a ball cap on. And then she got to leave by 7. But she says in her statement later, she's like, production is making herself look bad. I'm like, girl, you making yourself look bad. Who does that? Who does that? Listen, I am all about showing up in the no makeup look. Okay. Get it how you live it. But you are the star of this show. How do you come in looking like you just got out of bed? I don't get that. It didn't make any sense to me. That's just me. Thank you, West Coast Bells, who says Tamar feels misunderstood and she had the opportunity to show the world who she really is, but she couldn't because deep down, she is a spoiled brat. And once again, she threw a tantrum. Well, thank you for that super chat. To me, this was crazy. At that point in time, she's like, it's 7:01 and I gotta leave. Now, she barely answered a question at the time. And I was like, girl, what is going on here? This is some cockamamie mess, okay? Now, then we find out that they were shooting Braxton Family Values simultaneously. So something caused her to shut down. I guess this was around the wedding, okay? This was around the wedding. Now, Mona has to show up, and then they asked for it to really talk to David. That's who it was. Mona shows up to talk to David, and Mona needs to get more from Tamar, but he blames the issues with Tracy on the reason why they can't get through anything, right? So he then goes into talking about what happened at the wedding happened. So this is what happened. Apparently, Tamar had to go change her shoes. So at a certain point in time, Tracy runs into her and allegedly grabs her by the hair and then takes her hand and bends it back like this. Now, the whole situation is sounding real painful to me. And I'm thinking to myself, did they capture this on Braxton Family Values? But apparently they couldn't get none of Tracy and Tamar together because that won't happen. Okay. So I was thinking to myself, what is going on here? Okay. So he then begins to school Mona on real world versus reality television. And he talks about how certain things need to happen in order for a show to be good. But at the same time, Mona's looking at him like, no. She says that Tamar made the choice to be on this show. And so since she made that choice, this is what she has to deal with. And I have to say, this is really the premise of the show at this point in time. It is showing that Tamar continues to choose to be on reality television despite the issues that she has. And in order to deal with these things, it is very evident to most of us that she is going to have to get off of these shows in order to deal with those issues. That's the bottom line. That's what I learned in the situation. And I feel like that's what we're going to get from this moving forward regardless. Okay, that's all we can take from this. Tamar goes in, she watches the tapes of herself. She can't believe what she's seeing. She talks to Mona Scott Young, who feels like we're not getting everything that we need to get from you. And it's just kind of crazy to me that Tamar doesn't see herself. She really doesn't see herself. They tried to get Tracy and Tamar to reconcile. That didn't happen. Tamar's walked out of every scene that got really uncomfortable for her. She couldn't own up to any of the things that she really needed to own up to in order to grow. And she did. And Tamar still feels like she's not in control. Okay. So, and also here's the other thing though, that I will say in Tamar's defense. Easter Washington surmises that Tamar is, and capitalizing on it. Those fake tears she was bouncing up and down to get out episode 1. Smart people love to watch a train wreck. Oh, wow. Here's it. Ash G. Daniel says, I feel like Tracy needs intense therapy on her own, as do a few of her siblings. They are not kids anymore, and you have to do the work. The one thing I will say about the whole situation with Tracy is that I feel like she has some issues that she needs to work through as well, and that Tamar should not be taking ownership of those issues. That's what I feel like. And I think that, that's Tracy's issues to deal with. Tamar needs to work on her own, and she does not need to be concerned about something that Tracy needs to get over from 25 years ago. That's what I think. I also feel like Tamar did not believe or did not realize that a lot of this show was going to center on the things that happened behind the scenes. I don't think she realized that they were going to be showing that much of her exiting, that much of her having conversations with production. I think that is why she felt betrayed by production, and she did not say it in that final interview before she gets up and walks out. So I feel like I think gives us a little bit of an idea of why Tamar has reacted so strongly to this series, because showing the behind the scenes of production actually shows a lot more of the real Tamar than what we actually see them capturing on tape. That's what I think. She did not want us to be able to see that. And in any other situation, we wouldn't have been able to see that on television. The way they went behind the scenes on this show was really, really good. It was actually probably one of the best parts of the show. And they probably really wouldn't have been able to piece together a show without showing us those conversations with her and Michael Beck and all the behind the scenes and the closed door conversations and her walking out of the scenes. We wouldn't have been able to really piece together what really happened, nor would we have understood it at all, because to me, it was like every time you were about to get some work done, something happened for her that she would sabotage the work. And I don't think she realizes that she was sabotaging it. So when she did look at the footage, I felt like she was like, this is people are going to see this. People are going to see me. People are going to see what I'm doing behind the scenes. And unfortunately, I actually think that is probably the most healthy thing for her to see, because it is through seeing herself through that lens that I feel like she will really get to understand, maybe I do have some like other issues that I need to deal with too, that are bubbling beneath the surface of these surface issues. Just my thought, just my theory based on her reaction. Okay. Now, during her exit interview, during her hair and makeup, she apparently watched episodes 1 and 2, like the full episodes. And she said, not today. Okay. She came out there, wouldn't answer a single question, and then left. Okay. But guess what? Guess who called in? That attorney, and said, no, girl, you got a contract to do. So guess what? I'm going to need you to get back up in there and answer these questions. If I got to ask you these questions, my doggone self. and ask those questions the lawyer does. Okay. Now she finally gets through that final exit interview, and I felt like, really honestly, we didn't really get much from that exit interview either. And I just kind of felt like, oh, this is more the same. This is more of that same speech about how I want to show myself to be better than I was at one point in time before. I want to go through this situation and show people that you can change. But at the end of the day, girl, you got to be willing to go through the change, the transformation publicly. You got to be willing to publicly go through that change and get into that cocoon, which is nasty. It's going to be gritty. It's going to be dirty in order to come out on the other side looking like a butterfly. Okay. And the only way to do that on reality TV is to allow the cameras in and to allow them to capture the moments that really matter. And if we don't get those moments that really matter, we won't be able to understand the change that you want people to see. Okay. Now, that's my thoughts on the episode. I'm gonna go ahead and give you my take on the season overall. If I have to rate this season from a 1 to a 10, and I'm gonna ask you guys to rate it from a 1 to a 10, I'm actually gonna give it a 9. Okay, let me tell you why I'm gonna give it a 9. Because I felt like the network did us a service by giving us the behind the scenes of what went on, okay, with the series. Okay, with them giving us that behind the scenes, we would not have known much about the relationship dynamics between David and Tamar. We wouldn't have gotten to really see what the camera allowed us to see of David, which seems to be very controlling. Now, I see a lot of you guys have some differing opinions about the series as a whole. We're not rating just the episode right now, guys. We are rating the series as a whole. Tracy gives it a strong 8. Jackie gives it a 10. Jay says 4 for me, no closure and no purpose for the show. Virginia felt like it was a waste of time. And I can understand why you guys feel like that as well, because I feel like, typically when we watch a television show like this, we want to see a resolve. We want to see a person start off from point A and get to point Z, okay? And we want to see the story arc. And in 6 episodes, if the focus is totally on you, then we should really see that. But because the focus was not on her, the focus was mostly on David and Goldie, okay? We never really got to see the resolution that we were hoping for. You know what I'm saying? And with Tamar, she's a complex character because sometimes you can look at Tamar and you can think she's a villain. But because people love her, she's also a heroine. You know what I'm saying? She's the hero in this scenario. So it's kind of like she's almost like, and I don't want to say she's not, her life isn't tragic, but in terms of how storytelling works, she would be what we consider the tragic hero because of all the things that she has gone through and that she is going to have to overcome. So it would have been nice at the end of the day, we had seen her make that change, and we never did. And honestly, I don't think that we're going to see much of that in the WeTV show for Braxton Family Values. I don't think we're going to see that either. But guess what? Guess who's going to be right here recapping the episode each and every week? Me and you, hopefully. So make sure you guys stick around for that. Listen, it has been a crazy morning. We had to work through the people coming into the door, but I was like, no, we're going to keep this thing going, okay? The show does not stop. And that's the thing. It's such a great metaphor for this show. When people are filming these types of reality television shows, and this is also in life as well, when you have committed to doing a job, you commit to doing the job and you see the whole thing through, no matter what happens. So guess what? The moment that somebody came to the door, I could have said, listen, y'all, it's a wrap. We are done right now. I got to go. What's most important? The fact is that I set out to do this job. We're gonna sit here and do it, regardless of what's going on in the background and how crazy it gets. We're gonna keep it moving. That's how it's done. Antonio says, was I the only one that noticed how happy David was in this episode because Goldie was gone? He got what he wanted. Yep, he sure did. And he said that they prayed for her to go, and go she did. Okay, and go she did. That's what you got to. I mean, listen. I just felt like, and how did she just skate past that? Like he didn't even say that, and then laughing about it. Like, girl, what? This ain't funny. This is really telling about what this man is praying for over your life. And think about it like this: somebody is praying for your therapist or whoever, whatever they is that you're working with, in order to have a breakthrough. They are praying for that person's downfall so that you don't have that breakthrough that you need to have and that you want to have in order to grow. Ain't that something right there? Ain't that something? Yup, Monique says it best. He harassed her until she left. Bloop. Listen, this was crazy. Anika says goalie wasn't right. I think the goalie made a lot of mistakes as well. Trust and believe, I do. But David won't right either. Okay. There was a lot of wrongs in this situation, and it wasn't just on goalie side. A lot of it was on David's side. That's just my assessment. But listen, guys, let me know your comments if you're watching this later on after we have gone live. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm interested. If there are other shows out there that you guys think that we would all be passionate about, write them down in the description link below. I've got a little bit of a break between shows. I'm still going to be recapping Potomac on Mondays, but after this show, we won't really have anything during the week. If there's something that you guys are in love with, let me know. Otherwise, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell button, and I will catch you in the next video.